Good evening, sir. I thought we agreed to call our names. So you can call me Samdu, Manasda.
It's, it's a public forum.
No,
So
no. Now
I
there is
thought
nobody there yet. It's only
I thought
us.
I'll talk to you privately about it.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening, welcome everybody to this second session of webinars on self-care in times of COVID pandemic with the Reiki Center of Happiness at the Indian Institute of Technology. This is fantastic. This is an honor to have Professor Manas Mandal today with us, together with an amazing panel for the whole week with Dr. Sandhu Chetri, with Dr. Tia Kansara, and of course with the head of the Reiki Center, Professor Priyadarshi Patnaik, as well as Dr. Thanush Reduta, who have been coordinating all these webinar series. So we are going to start with a question actually to Professor Priyadarshi. The first session was all about consciousness. It was all about mindfulness. And probably you have some comments. What did we learn? What was your takeaway from that session?
Thank you, Mr. Gallardo. It was a wonderful session the last time we heard it. And there were two deliveries that I carried back home. When it comes to the session by Mr. Reiki and about spiritual, I was reminded of a few things that I would quickly like to share because my background is aesthetics and I worked on Indian aesthetics. One of the key 10th century aestheticians known as Abhidhamma Gupta talked about the aesthetics experience being one where one is lost in the entire story or the dramatic performance to such an extent that one loses one's identity. So that state where you're so lost that your identity is lost is something I was reminded of. So that was one of the very interesting things. And yes, when we are in the presence of something larger than ourselves, we feel lost. And I was again immediately reminded of a very beautiful poem known as Renaissance by Edna St. Vincent Millay, where she talks about looking at the sky. She's lying down somewhere and she's looking at the sky. And the sky seems big, fine. But then she says that it is as if I can touch the sky. The sky, I said, must stop somewhere. And sure enough, I see the top. The sky, I thought, is not so grand. I almost could touch it with my hand. And reaching up my hand to try, I screamed to feel it touch the sky. I screamed, and lo, infinity came down and settled over me, forced back my scream into my chest, bent back my arm upon my breast, and pressed the pressing of the undefined, the definition of my mind. So at that point of time, the sky becomes something which was so vast that this was a direct experience. So I think that this image and these words came back to me when I listened to Mr. Reiki the other day. And when it came to the talk and the beautiful meditation practice by Dr. Sandhu Chetri on mindfulness, I was reminded of the fact that the tradition is from the Vipassana tradition, which is a Theravada tradition of Buddhism, where it is all about watching the mind and the body. And according to one of the traditions there, it is unmeditated, non-judgmental perception. You are watching without making any judgment and without trying to maintain a certain sense of right. I found this wonderful degree of convergence between these two concepts. And one of the last things I would like to say is that at some point of time, I have a feeling that words create all the difficulties because these experiences are difficult experiences to articulate and they are articulated in different ways and probably deep down they mean the same thing. So it was a wonderful experience, Mr. Gallardo, and we look forward to a wonderful talk today and some very inspiring ideas that would emerge from there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Priyadarshi. It's amazing what you are doing with the center, with the Reiki Center focused on happiness. And I see Mr. Reiki Singh as well joining. So we are the whole panel ready for today's session. Please ask any questions you want. We have the chat and then we have the Q&A session. We try to go through those questions and answer as many as possible. And then you can keep in contact as well with the center and all the panelists to keep going with the answers. So we'll try to answer as many as possible. So let me introduce you now to Dr. Thanush Reduta, who is going to be introducing Professor Mandal. So please.
Thank you, Louis. It is indeed a pleasure to introduce the speaker of the webinar today. Professor Mandal is currently a distinguished professor at IIT Kharagpur and an adjunct professor at the National Institute of Advanced Studies, IISc Bangalore. He was formerly a distinguished scientist and Director General, Life Sciences in DRDO. He has been a recipient of various fellowships and awards and has also been a visiting faculty at Harvard University. Though his laurels are many more than what I am speaking today, I would like to end here and request Professor Mandal to take over, who would be addressing the change in times and how we can cope in these changing times.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Tanusri. Before I begin, I'd like to be sure that I'm audible to all of you. And it's fine now? Okay. I think when I speak with the first slide, I would like to take some time, introduce the whole area that I wanted to convey. And then, of course, I'll take it forward. So in such case, Luis, I need to share my screen. Huh? Is that?
Yes, you can.
Okay. And here we go, I think.
Yes. Yes.
That's, so are you getting it?
Yes, we see them.
Is that okay?
Perfect.
Okay. So if there is anything wrong, just let me know so that I can do the necessary arrangements.
Absolutely.
Well, what I wanted to talk to all of us is nothing new. In fact, each one of us are facing the same problem today because of this life-changing event which is going all around us. Everybody is in the same frame. Everybody is having some difficulties. Therefore, there is nothing very new I'm going to talk. But what is important that I wanted to talk about is, along with the changes, if we fail to change ourselves, we'll actually accumulate problem and face difficulty, which we should not have if there is some science is understood, which is mental health science. So my idea of talking to each one of us is to talk about change. I mean, how change affects all of us. Well, every day there is some kind of change, and we don't like change every day. But just imagine that if someone asked me not to brush my teeth or not to have a cup of tea tomorrow morning, then it would be uh, an event which I'll remember probably for the next 1 year. It would be very difficult because I'm very used to and my brain is hardwired for that. But then think about a change which is much more a life event change, which is much bigger. That is, for example, somebody got a job, somebody lost a job, or somebody got married, or somebody faced a disaster. Today we are having disaster in Mumbai. Somebody had a hospitalization record with a life-threatening disease. All these life events also bring change in our life. Now, these changes create some kind of stress and problem for all of us. Nothing very new. But then the problem comes when so many changes come together, then we fail to adapt to it. And if we fail to adapt to it, it will accumulate. And if it accumulates, it will surely come out with some kind of deviations in our behavior. So the idea behind talking to all of you today, that how change is to be accepted. I always believe that change is a gift of time. Whatever be the change, we may perceive it as a bad change, but every change brings some kind of silver line in our life and how we can get rid of the kind of problem that we have been facing right now. But then what I am going to talk to all of you is the kind of lifestyle changes that we are going to make. I mean, or we are all in the process. Lifestyle changes are those changes which actually force us to do some kind of change. We call it outside in. Somebody is asking me to wash my hand. Somebody is asking me to put on face mask. Somebody is asking me to maintain social distance. So we are forced to do such kind of changes. And then I'll talk about some changes which are called coping style changes, wherein I'm not forced to make some changes, but if I fail to adapt to such kind of lifestyle changes, then something really brews in within. And that actually creates a lot of mental health issues. Therefore, I'll also talk about the coping style problems, which create trouble to all of us. And then from there, I will tell that if these changes are not taken care of, what may happen in case we generalize it too much or in case we underestimate is too low. Both are actually reactions to stress. And with that, I'll tell what precisely we can do to cope with such situations and what are the possible ways to take care of that. Well, telling about the problem has got two reasons for me, because the problems are being faced by all of us. The moment you get aware of the fact that these are the changes everybody is facing, your own problem goes down. And secondly, if I don't tell you about the problem, you would not listen about the solutions as well. That's a trick every psychologist do, even doctors also do. So you'll not go to a doctor if he simply says, take those medicines. Don't ask me what is that have happened to you. So you'll not go even to that doctor. So therefore, it's very important that I tell you what are the problems that take place and therefore what are the solutions that we may have.
Professor Manas Mandal. Oh, yes,
Yes.
Now we see the question. We didn't see the slides before. Now we see that. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Yes, please.
You can see it, huh?
Yes,
Okay.
we see the questions we have.
So the questions that we have is, what happens when we are forced to make significant changes in our daily life? That is, I mean, as I said, if I'm forced not to brush my teeth in the morning or not to get a cup of coffee in the morning, probably that would be a blunt day for me. So if many things happen in one day, and then if we are supposed to continue with that kind of changes over a period of time without adapting it, then definitely it will create problem for us. So how to adapt such kind of conditions is the crux of the matter that I'll talk to you. Let us first understand what are the troubles that we face when we face such a situation, particularly in post-COVID-19. First of all, the way we are experiencing this lockdown, particularly in India, of course, in Spain and European and other US countries also are facing this similar problem. But we had a very, very hard lockdown experience, and 2.5 months we are into it. And we are never used to it, actually. And we are facing it right now. And as a result of which, the way we are working from home, I mean, nobody is going to office. Maybe now they would start because lockdown has just started. So our home has become our new office. The way we are getting information, because more than any other knowledge or input or information, we are simply counting the number of deaths, number of people affected, number of people getting recovered. So the way we are counting all these figures, the way we are getting the breaking news, whenever you listen to any news, you get some breaking news, and they are all half-baked, half-truth news. How you churn out your piece of information has become a challenge for all of us. The way you are noticed, wherever you go, actually through apps, you are being surveyed by someone else. So there is a mass surveillance going on for good cause. I have got no problem with that. But we are being noticed wherever we are going. The way we are greeting each other, that is, we all have contactless greeting, especially in India. We cannot think of having contactless greeting. My mother never says, "How are you?" She simply touches me. Or if I have to greet her, then I simply touch her feet. But today, probably these things are forbidden in any public space. And the way we share our own space within home is causing a lot of cohabitation stress. It's causing a lot of proximal stress. We love our family, but we are never used to having such kind of proximal stress, probably never. I have not written, but the way we are worshiping God, that has also changed, because we cannot go to temple, churches, masjid, anywhere, synagogues, anywhere. You have to pray from your home. And we, the Indians, are actually doing a lot of rituals while going to such places. But today, nothing is accepted. So a lot of changes are going to take place in our life post COVID-19. As I said, the outside in is basically a lifestyle problem, but there is a problem called inside out, that I got all those changes within and how I metabolize that. And from there, how I deduce what is to be done. How do I adapt to it? Anywhere you go, you have to actually tolerate ambiguity. Everybody is speaking how long? The lockdown. So this tolerance to ambiguity has become a problem. The question of uncertainty, that is, what is going to happen to me, is a problem area. We have started having the contamination obsession, that am I getting infected? We also call as self-care apprehension. The way we look at people around us, that whether my next door neighbor is having coronavirus or not. The way we are experiencing our mood swings, that in the morning probably we are good, by the evening we are feeling bad because we have not moved out, we have not probably even seen sunlight in some cases, and that creates a lot of our coping style problem. Therefore, the coping style which goes from inside out, if we don't adapt it properly, probably we are going to face some kind of difficulties. Now the question is, if we do not address these issues and overgeneralize this risk, many of us actually are overgeneralizing this risk. These overgeneralization are resulting in some kind of community issues as well. That is, the moment people say that something is going to happen, some kind of containment, some kind of isolation, some kind of quarantine, people are indulging in panic buying, which we call Stockholm syndrome. As much you know, as much you can stock things back home. And we all know the famous stories in Australia. 3 women started fighting over toilet paper, and then some children have come, have stopped them, told them, please don't fight, I have some toilet paper with me, get them along. So this is happening. Xenophobia has started. We have started blaming others because we can't resolve problems, and that's true, we can't do it. But since you have to blame someone, otherwise you would not be able to keep that stress within you, you create some kind of xenophobia. It's called shadow pandemic. It's more a pandemic than the real pandemic with virus. Domestic violence has become a prominent and dominant issue, and its domestic violence is not really within husband and wife. Even children are suffering silently. More and more children, they're not getting any sweet voices from their parents, and since they are every time very closely attached, very closely proximated, cohabitation stress is also affecting them. So a lot of children are also getting suffocated. And hypersuggestibility, that has become a much bigger problem. And hypersuggestibility means, since you are anxious, anything people says that this can help you cure your problem, or this can work or act as a prophylaxis for you so that you don't get coronavirus, people have started whispering amongst themselves through WhatsApp messages. And as a result of which, a lot of fake news lot of half-truths are going on and around, and we all are getting afflicted to it. So hypersuggestibility comes only when you are stressed. And if you are stressed, any suggestion that is being given, you have a tendency to accept it more quickly. But the problem lies not in just over a generalization. The problem is also in underestimation, because risk underestimation is much more a problem than risk over generalization. Risk over generalization is limited to some people, but risk underestimation creates much more problem. And as you see in the photograph, I mean, all the beaches, I mean, the moment people get a chance, they actually, because of summertime, they all rush to beaches. So impulse control has become a problem. The craving to do first, think later is something which is affecting all of us. And we have started underestimating all this as a reaction to stress. Don't think that these people are less under stress. They're actually more stressed. And therefore, because of this behavior fatigue, they have gone for non-compliance. Non-compliance is part of our stress actually. Non-compliance and behavior fatigue is just not because that we are not under stress or we are not having any kind of fear out of it. So they develop misplaced confidence. And this misplaced confidence that nothing will happen to me forces them to go where they really want to. And that gives them a paradoxical pleasure. Paradoxical pleasure is actually good frustrations. Good frustrations are nothing but the kind of frustration that why I want to have within me. I mean, I would like to evade a situation and I would like to face the frustration, and that gives me some kind of shadow pleasure, which is called paradoxical pleasure. So people develop paradoxical pleasure. People have the gut feeling, they believe nothing will happen to me. And gut is, in medical sciences, we all know that it's a second brain. Gut feeling, as a layman, we often talk about gut feeling, but actually gut has got 3 trillion bacteria, and they are actually acting as a second brain for our system. And the other day, I was listening to Dr. Chetri, he also refers about it. And then selective inattention to risk, which I call as optimism bias. Optimism bias, that you are selectively inattentive. I often give this example that if I am a chain smoker, I believe nothing will happen to me. But those who are smoking outside, they will have cancer. So it's a bias that actually kills us. More such biases are actually causing problem for the policymakers as well, because everywhere you will find people are having optimism bias. They believe that they are strong enough, nothing will happen to them. So young people, especially, they have got this optimism bias, and as a result of which the government has a hard time to actually tackle and control them. So the question is, how can we do this self-care? I'll tell 8 points. Not that these 8 points are drawn straight away from some straight-jacketed materials. These 8 points have, if somebody can exercise it, do that, I'm sure they do not have to think about this pandemic stress in a big way. Maybe there would be some residual stress still, but they do not have to think about it. The first and foremost thing is that any thought that comes to our brain will find an expression in the body. If it is a positive expression, it will actually promote growth hormone. If it is a negative emotion, it will actually generate protection hormone. And if you are under protection hormone, you will actually develop a tendency to fight or flee. Both reactions will require a lot of blood flow away from your vital organ. And if your vital organ doesn't get enough of blood over a period of time because of your negativities, ultimately you develop some kind of difficulties for your vital organ. It may be kidney, it may be liver, it may be heart, it may be head. So this is simply a medical logic that any thought that enters in our mind will find an expression somewhere. If it is a good expression, if it is a good thought, it will actually help our body to calm down. If it is a bad thought, it will find an expression somewhere, it will go out. Do not ask questions to uncertainty. If there are uncertainty, do not ask anyone. The moment you ask someone, people will give you some suggestions and you will become more and more suggestible. And if you get suggestions from 3-4% for the same problem, you will get 3-4 different answers. And at the end of the day, you will get actually more problem with more solutions. That creates more cognitive stress for you. If you have got one solution, then you will have no problem. If you know that this is the only solution, then you will have no stress. But if you get 4-5 solutions, then you will certainly get some stress. So never ask question to uncertainty. The third thing is our gestures matter. And these gestures matter. This science has come from evolution from animals. Animals also, they don't talk to each other. They also show gesture to each other. We also show gestures to each other. If I smile, you are forced to smile even if you don't like me. But the question is, the moment you smile, some amount of good feeling will certainly enter into your brain. That's why in the morning, when we meet each other, we smile at each other and say, hello, good morning. And that actually makes your day. Therefore, gestures matter, and that gives us strength. And comforting gesture are those gestures for which people are liked or disliked. The next thing is that it's very important during this period to create a routine. Most of us procrastinate because we have got enough of time back home. We do not have much to do. So we create an artificial deadline for everything that we have to do. Even if you are back home, I'm sure each one of us has got a lot of job. Since we do not have the pressure behind, what happens? We start procrastinating. And procrastination is a disease. And through that, we actually create a habit of procrastinating everything. And that habit got reinforced when you finally find that, yes, you could do this job. Then it would be positively reinforced for a negative behavior. That is, you feel that any job that comes till the last moment, even if you do, you would be able to do that. But the quality actually goes down. Nobody realizes this. Excessive screen time must be avoided. We should not see a lot of, we should not spend lot of time, in television or in mobile, because we develop some kind of obsession with some kind of information. As I said, that some people obsessively check how many people died, how many people got afflicted. And I find people have got a clear record in their mind with all those statistics. This obsession creates problem and takes your attention away from any other job that will help you otherwise in a day-to-day life. My sixth point is that find some kind of volunteering opportunity, because you can't be happy without having other people happy. If others are unhappy, as I said, it's bound to impact you. So volunteering actually makes others happy. Identify the most vulnerable, find ways, whatever little you can do. More often we try to do by sending some money or one day's salary. That's not volunteering. I am not interested in that kind of volunteering. Volunteering must be something where you can actually participate, even if you are not spending money for that. My suggestion is that take one day at a time. Don't try to look too, futuristic. Don't try to be too futuristic, because we are all under stress, including me these days. And whenever you are under stress, you have to always look for the short-term goal. Long-term goal, if you try to see, it will force you to procrastinate these short-term goals. So take one day at a time and talk to people and stay connected through various medium. But please don't discuss about the virus always, because there are many people who are doing it. And if there is a solution, we'll get it automatically. So that is nothing to worry about. There are some coping strategies also. Let us be clear about it, that if I'm anxious, let us understand first, I'm not alone. Everybody is suffering. If everyone is suffering, what for I'm worried, unnecessarily myself. If this anxiety persists with you, take a virtual work. Virtual work is nothing but going down to memory line. You must have so many positive memories in mind. You must have so many friends and people around you who are staying at different places. Go for a virtual walk at some point of time. Your anxiety will go down. I'm not saying that you have to mask your anxiety. You have to only de-intensify your anxiety by having this virtual walk. Look for support system. People are always there to help you out if you ask for it. More often we don't ask for it. And I'm sure even on road, if you ask for some kind of help, and if there are 10%, I'm sure 5% would be there to help you out. We need to be very optimistic. We always talk about optimistic, but optimism is not a very easy thing to understand. We must be having optimism as a trait. Let us remember that we may have bad time, but not a bad life. A bad day cannot be equated with bad life. Therefore, good days are going to come and we'll all be able to get rid of this problem. We need to be resilient and we need to be able to bounce back. Resilience is so important because unless we have got resilient, once we fall, we'll not get back. So falling down is no problem. Not getting up is a sin. We should all be able to do that. Let us focus on what we can control. There are many things which are not within your personal control. We call it negotiable fate. Something we leave it to God as well. Therefore, if we try to control everything, because some people ask me, did you find any source where the medicines can come, the remdesivir or hydroxychloroquine medicines can come? I mean, they are trying to control everything by themselves, even if it is not recommended by either ICMR or by WHO or by your treating physician. People try to control things. They hoard it. They believe that the moment somebody gives you this decision or suggestion, you will take it. Therefore, it's important that we adapt to new normal. And this new normal must be set at your brain in default mode. And to do that, we have to change our habit. And the habit cannot be developed overnight. If you believe that you can change your habit the moment you go to office, you will wash your hand, you will keep your face mask. More often, it's not true, it's not possible. To develop a habit like brushing your teeth or putting your seatbelt when you go in the car, it requires minimum of 60 days. Because scientific studies have found that even if your hand or leg is amputated, you get the pain for at least 20-21 days. These are called phantom delusions because the brain sends you a signal of that pain. And to get the brain hardwired, you need to actually do some kind of neuroplastic arrangement within the brain. So it's called rewiring of the brain. And this rewiring of the brain is possible only when you maintain your habit over a period of time. Therefore, it's a good time that back home, we are not at risk. We should be able to develop all these habits. And once these habits are developed, then your brain is at autopilot. You do not have to spend excess energy in order to be consciously aware of the fact that I have to put on my mask. You will do it automatically, as if we have been doing it for past several years. Meeting, touching people has become our instinct, but we can't do it today. Now it's a human instinct. To get rid of such kind of instinct and actually indulge in such kind of behavior would actually require some kind of habit. And that habit can be developed no less than in 2 to 3 months. I would suggest at least 2 months. I'm coming to the end of my talk. Let us also remember that helping others will help us. Because we in Happiness Center in IIT Kharagpur has a philosophy that we don't want to be happy by ourselves. We want to remain amongst the happy people because we believe by creating happiness, we will become more happy. That ambience is more important. Therefore, you have to make sure that you can help others. There are several ways you can actually make others do what they are supposed to. I'll not go into the theory. One theory says that you can nudge others without forcing their decision to change. You can actually give them certain clues where to go, how to take the hand wash, and how to wipe your hands and face before you actually go to the room. You can deliver convincing message. I have written some convincing message for you. You can notice that. You can volunteer yourself for many jobs with proper protection. You can bring social innovations in order to help others because we don't need money everywhere. You see, the milkman is giving milk through a pipe, and it's his innovation. And that innovation today, the I mean, um, the autowalas, they have started having a transparent plastic between the driver and the passengers. It's a sheer innovation. I would call it as innovation, but these innovations stem out of non-expert system. We call it jugaad. So the jugaad is also a form of innovation. If you can assist people in having that kind of protection within the society or within the framework that you have got the liberty, I'm sure you are doing a human's job. Finally, what else we can do? You can help a faceless homeless person. You can send a mail to someone who is in isolation or in containment zone. You can activate a mutual aid group for relief. You can support people with mental health issues. You can support food bank to feed people in need. You can utilize your teaching skill for school children. All these things are possible. For that, what you require, not sympathy, you require empathy. Empathy is something wherein actually you feel for them. You not only work for them, you not only activate yourself for them, you execute a behavior for them, you also feel for them. Unless you feel for them, these routine behaviors would not help. Therefore, it's very important that whatever profession we are excelling today, we should be able to part with the people who are not having access to that. Given all this, let us understand that in critical times, we have to bring our best. In fact, in critical times, we have got our worst, we have got our best. I have shown you the worst as well. How by becoming risk overgeneralizing tendencies, developing such tendencies, we create the worst for the community. At the same time, we have seen how we can be resilient, helping others, volunteering for others, doing the best for the community. So we can bring the best in us. So doing the best and worst is our choice actually. Our problem is that if we are having trouble, then if we find that a door is closed, we don't see that other doors are also open. We can go through them. We can see happiness through other doors, but we look at the closed door only, as if all our happiness is beyond that closed door only. Now, happiness is something which cannot just be grasped like that. It's like a butterfly. If you try to grasp it, you will not be able to make it. Sit comfortably, be calm, do mindfulness, you will find that the butterfly is alighting on you. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you so much, Professor Manas Mandal. It was really, really insightful. We invite everybody to ask some questions. I see many questions on the chat, and now we are going to facilitate that discussion. Before we move into the discussion, I have one question, and something that you actually mentioned, and you talk about this shadow of the pandemic shadow, and one of them is xenophobia.
Shadow pandemic. Yeah.
shadow pandemic. And right now we are seeing a lot of xenophobia. I'm based in the US, and you are aware, and you mentioned Mumbai and many other countries. But it's
Professor
impressive how
Mandal,
people,
may I suggest that you can stop sharing the screen so that
I've stopped it, and anything that I need to do, I'm not getting. Just 1 second, Luis.
you just have to stop sharing.
So I have to. What do I have to do? I have to stop the sharing. Huh?
yes.
Did I do that? No.
You have to click on the button below.
Can I close that? I don't know.
Yeah, you actually have to go to the Zoom overlay and click on the green button.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Fantastic.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yeah, so I was asking about this xenophobia and the shadow, because we see now how suddenly still the measures of lockdown are in place, but people are going to the streets massively. And we have all this looting and all these riots. And this is becoming quite serious in many places. I think that you explained that might be one of the reasons why, but can we go a bit deeper and why we really can go to the extreme, and what can we do in order to manage this situation?
Well, I don't think I have an answer for that, but let me tell you, whatever is happening right now, you are in Chicago right now, whatever is happening is basically after a prolonged lockdown, you need only a trigger, and that trigger is causing this havoc. So the policymakers often do not understand the relationship between one incident and the background of it. They are actually intertwined. I'm sure many such events occur in many places, and today we saw such a flare up. I'm sure it is attributable to the kind of stress and lockdown that people are undergoing right now. I mean, this is an expression of it. Now, from behavioral science, let me tell you, there are 4 kinds of people who actually have such kind of difficulty. 4 kinds. Some kind of people actually attack the problem. They try to understand what really has gone wrong and what they can actually contribute. So suppose some peaceful marcher, they can organize some peaceful procession. Some people are compromiser. They don't protest. They simply write a blog, or they don't actually go to the street. They compromise with the threat coming up, as at the same time they try to make some expression out of it. Some people avoid it. They are avoider. They simply don't go into that, and they avoid it altogether. And some people defend it. The people who are defending it, to express their own trouble, they have to blame someone else. Because as long you don't blame someone else, your own thought will not come out. As I said, any negative thought that enters in your mind must find an expression. Either you damage your own organ or you damage somebody else's organ. So it's a defensive people who actually finds an expression, and the root cause behind is risk overgeneralization. And that probably is coming due to overconsumption of news, the kind of inputs that we are getting. That's why I said, if we reduce the screen time, probably a lot of threat from the people at large can be reduced. Because when such thing happens, there is a clear dissociation between public mind and governance. And this dissociation between public mind and governance comes because of the defensive reactions from the community. So we could fairly, as a behavioral scientist, I can very easily link between what is happening today and what has happened yesterday. That's what is the answer. And that's the reason when we are in stress, if we do not take them towards the other side, you must have noticed in Europe, in Spain even, people celebrate the COVID warriors. Why do they do it? It's just not to appease the medical or the health workers. It's also to bring a vibe within the community that we are together. We need to have a community resilience to fight it out, rather than trying to deflect our frustration onto others.
Thank you. That was super insightful. Thank you so much. So I think that we have more questions.
Yes.
Maybe I'll ask a question. Oh, go ahead,
Yes.
If you forgive me, I think we should hand it over to Professor Patnaik.
Yes.
Will take charge from now on.
Please.
Anyway, because we can take it first, and then I can switch to others through Professor Patnaik.
So we are requesting Mr. Rekhi to make his ask his question, please.
Oh, thank you, Professor Patnaik. My question is this: you're a neuro specialist, Professor Mandal, and a brain specialist. Do you think our brains will change because of this situation that we are going through? I know you've suggested all the coping strategies, but overall, you know how much we'll do and how much we'll not do. So do you expect some changes in our brain?
Okay, this theory is called, it has to change because this is, I'll not go into neuroscience because then I'll be, enticed to talk more about that. I'll come to the layman's view. It's called biopsychosocial set point. And I'm giving you a small example. Suppose I got a lottery ticket, $5 million. And I'm extremely happy. Ask me about my happiness after a week. The money remains with me. My happiness goes down. Because anything that happens in the system, either in a biological system or a social system or a psychological system, it has to go back to normalcy. That's what is adaptation. That's what is called set point. So once you start doing it, the moment you see others doing it, you have to do it. This actually is neurologically explained through mirror neuron. There are neurons which actually guide us to do such kind of activities. So over a period of time, these neurons will come together, form a synaptic connectivity within themselves called neuroplasticity. Once that neuroplasticity develops, then the brain will go to the autopilot. You will not have to actually consciously aware of the fact what is that you must do. So to bring that brain into autopilot, we need 60 days. That's the research evidence. Research evidence. As of now, let me give you the statistic. 81%, not an Indian study, it's a WHO study. 81% of the people are now washing hands. 67% of the people are maintaining social distance worldwide. The question is that we have spent in between about 5 months and we have been listening to it. Some people have started following it up as well. So over a period of time, you will find that 100% probably will use face mask, 100% will do the hand washing. And this has to be done because that's the set point we want to reach, which is called adaptation in other forms.
Thank you, Professor Mandal. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Professor Mandal, I would just
Yes.
like to share with you very briefly that it was a wonderful talk. And as you were talking about coping strategies, I was reminded of the Black Death, where you find that significant transformations at economic, at social and cultural level also took place. So that raised this question in my mind that there are two areas where I can see personally and I can experience things changing, and these changes are sometimes a little disturbing as well. One is in the field of relationships. So people meeting one another and the way they used to behave because of the new normal, the way they are behaving, there is a certain degree of uncertainty in understanding what they mean. Sometimes they are not greeting. If you greet somebody, somebody is just ignoring you. Those kinds of things, these transformations are taking place. The other one is that there is a reconfiguration, I would say, of identity, which is also happening, because you see that the way we used to behave and the way of our identities are a lot about the way we act, the things that we do and all that. And a certain change has taken place. And for many people, this change would be more drastic than for many of us right now. So we would just like to know your take on these two observations.
Xenophobia, I just talked about George Floyd's death and why it is, this, we have evidence since last 100 years that something of that sort is happening. Not only in US, everywhere there is some such incident going on. But if something of this sort today, what we see in US going on is actually preceded by the whole uncertainty, our inability to tolerate ambiguity and manage uncertainty over a period of time must find expression. And these expressions are through looting, arson, going for all out activity that actually defeats the purpose of social policy are actually happening. The identity is an issue that you are saying we are going against the human instinct. And this problem probably will not be more on Western side. It would be more on the Eastern side, country like ours. The reason is very simple. We are a collective society. In collective society, the relationship matters everything. And as I said, to understand that relationship, we do not have to go for any kind of formalities. We know how we are connected to each other. Therefore, we have to develop, I call it a vertical collectivism. This vertical collectivism is nothing but that we all understand where we are placed, where we are spaced, because otherwise people are talking about social distancing, but people are not talking about social engagement. Social distancing is not social disengagement. Nobody is talking about it. As long our media, our governance do not talk about it, I'm sure Prime Minister once talked about it, that social engagement should not be, avoided in the name of social distancing. It's more of physical distancing rather than social distancing. So identity has to go a radical change.
Thank you, sir. I believe that this is a very interesting, important message you have shared with us about social engagement. And probably we are at a loss and we are still exploring how to reconfigure, re-understand our social engagement when in the context of the new norms of social distancing. I will request other panelists to share their views, and after that, maybe Louis will raise a few questions which have been brought from the participants. Thank you.
I think Dr. Tia Kansara has some question.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, brilliant. Yes, I had a question regarding
Yes.
the manner in which
Mm-hmm.
this violence is exploding and expressing itself. Is there a
Mm-hmm.
way that the trauma of being isolated
Mm-hmm.
can transition not
Mhm.
into violence, but
Mhm.
into peaceful protest? What needs to happen for that? Or has it gone too far already? Thank you.
Well, let me tell you, this is not an expression of the trauma that we had. It's called secondary traumatization. I have to give a parallel of secondary smoker. That is somebody who is not smoking but inhaling somebody else's smoke will have more trouble as compared to a person who is actually smoking. This is also true. Traumatization and secondary traumatization are two different things. When such kind of violence takes place, it means people are already afflicted to secondary trauma. There must be already something going on which I call collective whispering. They are all thinking in one direction, but not talking to each other probably. And that gives rise to something which is called collaborative lies. So people come up with lies, collaborative lies. So I'm not saying that it is good, bad, people have been doing right or wrong. That's not the issue. Issue is the social dynamics. The social dynamics start with some kind of trauma. We become suggestible. That suggestibility, if we fail to address that suggestibility, we develop stress. If the stress is not resolved, we get frustration. If the frustration is not resolved, it is either going outward called aggression, or it's going inward called depression. It's a simple logic. To me, because I am a mind engineer, so for me it's a simple logic. So the question is, the country is never run by scientists or professionals. Scientists run by politicians. The major problem is that they do not take care of these kind of issues while they frame a policy, or at least post hoc, what management they should be doing, keeping all these things in mind. Because either there would be more of suicides, which is due to depression, or there would be more such incidents like what is happening in George Floyd's case is aggression. So it comes through trauma, to stress, to frustration, to aggression, or to depression. Precisely this is happening today.
Thank you.
May I ask one question? In fact, this is the elite group around the world who are traumatized because of a conspiracy theory, and because they are from the elite groups, they take stock of others. They also kind of carry others with them, and they bring this kind of problem to everybody. How to overcome this kind of situation for people when big people, top guns, who are supposed to be scientists, doctors, they get together, virologists, and they talk different language. People who follow them are scared. What advice would you give to them? How to overcome this kind of problem?
There are two issues in it. First of all, the nature of science itself. The other day we talked about spirituality, of course, and I was talking to AKG about it. I mean, science is all about argument. Okay. So people will continue to argue. If there are two scientists and they are arguing with each other, then they are not scientists, because one is enough then. You don't require two person who says yes sir, yes sir. If two person both are saying yes sir, you require only one person. So scientists will continue to talk in their language, and that language would be argumentative in nature. And because of this kind of argument, my father still says that you people yesterday said eating tomato is good, today you say eating tomato is bad. And as a result of which, the GM food could not be accepted. As a result of which, the other kinds of sciences which are close to this kind of controversies, having this kind of controversies, are not flourishing. One result is stem cell research therapy. The stem cell research will never flourish because the people cannot. One more example is nanotechnology. We know that by using nanofertilizer, we can get 4 times the food that we are getting from the same piece of land. But we don't know 20 years down the line, those nanoparticles will affect the generations or not. So this science is always about ambiguity. But there must be a group of people who are between scientist and layman, because layman doesn't understand scientist language. Therefore, scientists do not understand layman's mind. Therefore, the conflict continues. And as a result of which, people develop some kind of conspiracy theory because they don't follow it. And that conspiracy theory helps them develop a condition called social paranoia. By developing social paranoia, we create an artificial insulation amongst us or within us so that others cannot afflict you. You can be super, conscious about something if that is happening. So conspiracy theory, scientists' inability to express everything in common language is to be blamed. And today, whatever is happening, I'm sure it is because of not having a position in between scientist and layman, which is generally a politician, and they don't express it the way it should have been. We are having trouble with today.
Thank you so much. I think that we have probably time for one more question from the audience, and then we'll try to answer these via email. I think there are many questions that actually relate to resilience. So Professor Mandal, could you outline strategy to develop resilience in these times of COVID and post-COVID?
To develop resilience?
Yes.
It's called community resilience. There are strict guidelines. There are clear guidelines. Not that I have to frame someone as something. It's actually is already there. One has to listen to people who have, there are two theories about it. Let me quickly tell you. One is a compassion theory, other is a competition theory. The competition theory says that under such kind of problem, people will compete each other and some people will win, some people will die. The compassion theory says that, well, people are generally good. They will try to help each other and some will still die because of compassion, not because of competition, because they will try to save each other. In actuality, there is a fine blend between competition and compassion in the resilience forum. And if we understand the dynamics between competition and compassion in community resilience, and there are guidelines for that, it can be implemented very easily, provided somebody is interested to listen to us.
This is really, really helpful. So I think that we are five minutes past the hour,
Yes.
and we want to be considerate with everybody's time. So we want to say thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
It was
Thank you
super,
so
super
much.
insightful. Thank you everybody for joining. Don't forget that we have a third session on Friday with Dr. Tia Gansara, and it's gonna be wonderful. So please join on Friday. Remember that the recordings will be hosted as well as the slides on the World Happiness Academy, and you'll have access. And actually you want a certificate of participation, you can get it too when you actually attend all three sessions. Thank you again. Thank you, Professor Manas Mandal. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bless you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.